relationships within my family, so the dynamics changed, and I found that I was in foster care as well on a voluntary basis, and that was where I had my first suicide attempt.
The way I found to socialise with people when I moved to Melbourne was to smoke weed. At that stage, I didn't necessarily understand where I was at emotionally. I thought everyone felt like this all the time.
It was when I was 16, and I think it was unlivable conditions in the family home.
It was like being in a cocoon, more or less, you know, and I couldn't get myself motivated enough to be out in the community, engaging with people in the community.
It involved family, and I was a long distance away, and that made it extremely difficult for me. And then the worries started, you know, and the catastrophising, what if, what if, what if.
Depression has only been an eighth of the problem for me. It's always been about anxiety, and I've always had this terrible fear of the worst case scenario.
I was diagnosed eventually with schizoaffective disorder, which is schizophrenia and usually a mood disorder, and I'm pretty sure it was bipolar.
I'd lost my flat, I'd lost my social status, I had to move back in with my parents in the country, so I looked at myself as a complete and utter failure.
I was stuck in a public service job with no career path.
Coming from a background of high achievement, both academically and sportingly, I couldn't imagine how I'd gotten there, and I certainly couldn't imagine how I could get out by action.
I couldn't see a way out, and then I just went into auto mode, really. I was just on automatic pilot.
It was a really peaceful and calm decision. For me, it seemed logical, sensible, and the perfect solution. I certainly wasn't, forthcoming in all the things that were going on for me at the time, but nor was I really asked.
And I don't feel I can talk to family because I feel like I'm burdening them.
I spoke to no one in my social circuit about how I was feeling. And when it came to speaking to my family, I closed off. I said, look, they can't know.
I find it very difficult to open up, and the worse I feel, the more withdrawn I become.
Maybe I felt ashamed that I had it, this suicidal ideation. I felt ashamed.
Back then there was the attitude towards suicide, and there still is this attitude with a lot of people that it's a desperate cry for attention. It's not actually someone saying, look, I'm in a bad place and I genuinely need help. They looked at it as like, bah, wasting our time, trying to get attention, trying to be special by trying to kill himself.
I was told that I was selfish for trying. And then for me, and I know this looking back at my notes, it was actually seen for me personally as a selfless thing. I was almost freeing them as opposed to it being a selfish thing.
There have been people in the medical profession that I've come across, be it many years ago, that treated me with almost contempt, very sarcastic in their remarks to me, very flippant, which is not only hurtful but it's quite damaging too when you're already in that very vulnerable state.
The other part was, because I did live in a small country town, my parents were afraid of disclosing. So that made me more stigmatised towards myself, which started a cycle of depression, suicidal ideation. How do I get out of this? And at that stage I didn't have the tools. It took me a long time to be connected with psychiatric services, let alone psychiatric services that did the support and provided the help that I needed.
There was one important thing that a health professional told me, and he told me that those suicidal thoughts are treatable. And so I maintained my attendance with health professionals, and through their guidance, through talking therapy, I managed to get out of that cocoon, if you like.
Once I got out of hospital, I started the group sessions of dialectical behavioural therapy. It was very difficult at times, but it was also very exciting at times too, like on the occasion when I'd been collecting things for my memory box and I came out of Kmart and I felt elated, and I didn't know why. I didn't know what this feeling was, and I went home and I looked through my notes, and under elation is happiness, and it's like, oh, I feel happy. I didn't know what that was, you know. That sounds ludicrous, I know, but that's what it was. I was not in touch with my feelings at all. And suddenly they're now being awakening, and I'm starting to recognise what I'm feeling, and that makes a big difference.
I would go for a short period of time, and then when I felt like the learning curve was too high, I'd withdraw, and then go back when I felt ready to sort of bite the next chunk of development, and that was hugely successful.
I have always found that psychiatrists do serve a very important function, and that's the physical and medication side, but that's only a small part of it. The psychologists, caseworkers, social workers, they make an enormous difference.
I preferred the work that I had dealt with the social workers as opposed to the clinical psychiatrists, I think because I could relate more and open up.
One of the things that I've learned is that if you're not sitting well with one practitioner, then you need to be brave enough to move on and find someone else. You need to find what's right for you and what feels right for you.
Nowadays I have a fantastic psychologist. Instead of saying, we're going to put you through this particular course of therapy, she finds what works, finds a way for me to apply it, and makes me do it. And she holds me to the fire. She will actually pull me up and say, hey, you haven't been doing this. Do it.
It challenges you, sometimes in ways you'd really prefer not to be challenged, but it challenges you to grow and learn and lets you unburden yourself of some of it, but also keep that which made you strong and resilient and able to move forward.
Once I had accepted the illness and really didn't worry if the community knew about it or not, I think it removed a whole big anxiety over my shoulders, just removed it completely.
I've looked at things and said, well, how can I turn this lead into gold, a process of alchemy? How can I make things better? For me, it's writing, it's visual art, it's the stencil art, it's the street art, it's talking with other people, it's the public speaking. It's the way of sort of reaching out to people and saying, I had this experience, but it gets better.
When you're in the deepest distress, there's like just this pinprick of light, and it seems so far away and so distant and so unattainable. But as you get the help that you need and you deserve, that light gets brighter. That's not to say that I'll never feel really depressed again or suicidal again or have those suicidal thoughts. I probably will, and I have. But what's the difference now is I've got the tools that I can use before I get to that place.
I walk around with a great deal of pride these days. Not so much arrogance, but pride. I've come a long way from where I've been.
It gives you incredible resilience, incredible bravery, and incredible empathy for others.
We shouldn't have negative attitudes to people who have a mental illness or who are suicidal. We should try and encourage a caring community.
Being able to talk about it and share my experience with others, I think for me helps build my resilience. Knowing that you're able to live what everyone else deems as a normal life. You can have a career, you can have children, you can have these negative things in your life and still be okay.